The attic was a mess of forgotten memories, dusty boxes, faded photos, and stacks of things no one had cared about for decades. Alex sighed, pushing a heavy trunk to one side, stirring up a cloud of dust. It wasn't how they imagined spending the weekend, but the house was theirs now, left to them by an uncle they barely remembered. A lifetime of junk was theirs to sort through, and somewhere between the yellowing newspapers and broken furniture, Alex had hoped to find something worth keeping. Instead, their hand brushed something cold and smooth, hidden beneath an old tarp. They froze, the odd texture catching their attention. Pulling back, the tarp revealed a metallic surface, polished yet strange, faintly shimmering under the dim attic light. It was like no material Alex had ever seen. The object was shaped like an elongated oval, almost like a pod, with faint etchings that resembled glyphs running along its sides. Curiosity overtook caution. Alex crouched down, running their fingers along the grooves, and a soft hum vibrated through the air. The pod responded, shifting slightly, as though acknowledging their touch. A faint line of light appeared along the seam, growing brighter. Then, with a hiss, the top half slid open. Alex stumbled back, heart pounding as cold vapor spilled out, momentarily obscuring the contents. When the mist cleared, Alex's breath caught. Lying inside was a woman, if she could even be called that. Her skin was a delicate shade of light purple, tinged with a soft pink glow, and it shimmered faintly like polished pearl. Her hair cascaded around her like liquid silver, catching the light in ways that seemed impossible. She wore an outfit that clung to her body, intricate and alien in design but torn in places as though she'd been in some kind of struggle. For a moment, Alex thought she might be dead. But then her chest rose, a shallow breath escaping her lips. They moved without thinking, reaching out to touch her shoulder. "Hey, are you okay?" Her eyes snapped open, huge, luminous, and startlingly blue, like twin oceans under a moonlit sky. She gasped, sitting up too quickly and swaying as though the movement disoriented her. Her gaze locked onto Alex, wide with panic. She spoke, her voice melodic and strange, the words unintelligible yet beautiful in their cadence. "Whoa, hey, it's okay." Alex raised their hands, stepping back to show they meant no harm. "I don't understand you, but I'm not going to hurt you." The alien woman blinked, her breathing ragged as she looked around, clearly confused and frightened. Her hand pressed against her temple as if trying to steady herself, her gaze darting to the pod, then back to Alex. After a tense moment, her expression softened slightly. She seemed to understand that Alex wasn't a threat. Slowly, she swung her legs over the edge of the pod, struggling to stand. Alex caught her before she collapsed. "Easy," they said, steadying her. Her skin was warm, softer than they expected. She stared at them with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion, speaking again in her alien tongue. When Alex still didn't respond, she sighed and gestured weakly at her neck, tapping a small device that was cracked and sparking. Alex could only guess it had something to do with her inability to communicate. "I don't know how to fix that," Alex admitted, though they doubted she understood. "But you need help. Let's get you downstairs." The alien hesitated but eventually nodded, leaning on Alex for support. They guided her carefully down the creaky attic stairs, every step feeling surreal. What was she doing here? How long had she been in that pod? And what kind of trouble had she come from? In the brighter light of the living room, Alex could see her better. Her clothes, though strange, were clearly some kind of uniform. The insignia on her sleeve was torn, but it looked official. Her injuries weren't severe, mostly bruises and small cuts, but the exhaustion in her eyes spoke volumes. She seemed like someone who had been running for a long time. Alex sat her down on the couch, then hurried to fetch water and a first aid kit. When they returned, she was examining her surroundings with a wary curiosity, her fingers lightly tracing the fabric of the couch as if marveling at its texture. "Here," Alex said, handing her the water. She hesitated, studying the glass as if it might bite her before taking a cautious sip. Her lips curled into a faint smile, her first since waking, and she said something that sounded like thanks. "Baby steps," Alex muttered, sitting across from her. They opened the first aid kit and held up some gauze, miming wrapping it around a cut on their arm. She watched intently, then nodded, allowing Alex to tend to her wounds. Her skin was strangely pliant, almost luminous under the light, and Alex couldn't help but notice the elegance in her movements, even in such a vulnerable state. As the minutes passed, the tension between them began to ease. She even managed a faint laugh at Alex's clumsy attempt to mime a question about her device. It was clear she found their efforts amusing, though she still couldn't explain much. And then, the device on her neck sputtered to life, emitting a garbled noise that made her wince. A few distorted words escaped, alien, fragmented, but unmistakably English. "Danger, they coming," Alex froze. "What do you mean? Who's coming?" She looked at them, her expression deadly serious. For the first time, her melodic voice carried an edge of urgency, and though most of her words were still unintelligible, one thing was clear. Whatever danger she had escaped, it was far from over. Alex's stomach tightened as the words sank in. The alien woman leaned forward, clutching her fractured translator as if willing it to function properly. Her luminous eyes bore into Alex's with an intensity that transcended language. She repeated the garbled warning, adding a sharp gesture toward the attic and the pod. "They're coming for the pod," Alex guessed, their voice tight with alarm. She nodded, though the subtle tremor in her hands betrayed her fear. Whatever, or whoever, was coming, it was bad enough to rattle someone who had already survived unimaginable circumstances. "Okay. Okay." Alex ran a hand through their hair, the weight of the situation pressing down hard. "We need to move that thing, or hide it, and I guess figure out what you're running from." The alien woman seemed to grasp the gist, though she looked unconvinced about hiding the pod. She gestured urgently toward the window, her delicate fingers mimicking the shape of a ship descending. Alex caught the drift. Whoever was after her wouldn't waste time knocking on the front door. Alex's mind raced. "All right, let's deal with this. But first," they looked her over, their voice softening. "Are you okay to move? You're still pretty banged up." She hesitated, then stood on shaky legs, determination radiating from her despite her condition. Alex had to admire her resolve. Whatever she'd been through, it hadn't broken her. "All right, warrior princess," Alex muttered, offering an arm for support. "Let's get to work." The next hour was a flurry of frantic activity. Together, they hauled the pod down to the basement, its weight making every step an ordeal. Alex couldn't help but notice how she seemed to recover strength as they worked. Her movements grew more fluid, and her gaze sharpened, as though action itself fueled her. Once the pod was hidden beneath an old tarp and a pile of dusty furniture, Alex paused to catch their breath. "Okay, that'll have to do for now." They turned to her. "Do you think it's safe?" She tilted her head, clearly not understanding the question, but her expression suggested skepticism. Still, she gave a reluctant nod. Alex decided not to press the issue. Before they could plan their next move, a distant hum reached Alex's ears. It started faint, almost imperceptible, but it grew steadily louder. The alien woman froze, her entire body tensing as her gaze darted upward. She spoke quickly, her voice urgent and clipped, though the words were lost to Alex. Her meaning, however, was crystal clear. "They're here." Panic surged as Alex bolted up the basement stairs, peeking through a crack in the curtains. The sky outside had darkened unnaturally, a low, throbbing hum reverberating through the air. Then they saw it, an angular craft hovering just above the treetops, its surface sleek and black as obsidian, reflecting the faint light of the moon. It didn't resemble anything Alex had seen in sci-fi movies. It was unnervingly organic, as though the ship were alive, its edges pulsating faintly like breathing skin. "Okay, that's new," Alex muttered, heart pounding. They turned to see the alien woman standing behind them, her expression grim. She pointed to the craft, then to herself, and then made a cutting motion across her throat. "You think they're here to kill you?" Alex asked. The look on her face confirmed it. The hum shifted to a sharp, high-pitched whine. Alex's house shook, picture frames rattling on the walls as a beam of light pierced the darkness, scanning the yard. Alex's eyes widened as the beam passed over a shed and the entire structure dissolved in an instant, reduced to a pile of smoldering ash. "Right. Hiding's off the table," Alex said, grabbing the alien woman's hand. "We're running." Her grip tightened on theirs, and despite the situation, Alex felt a jolt of connection as though her touch carried more than just fear. She trusted them. For some reason, that trust emboldened Alex in a way they hadn't expected. Together, they sprinted out the back door, staying low as they darted through the trees at the edge of the property. The whine from the ship shifted again, followed by the thud of something heavy landing nearby. Alex risked a glance back and saw figures emerging from the craft, tall, humanoid shapes clad in armor that glimmered under the ship's eerie light. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, and they carried weapons that crackled with blue energy. "Fantastic," Alex muttered, tugging the alien woman forward. "Come on, we need to lose them." She nodded, her breaths coming quick but steady, and gestured ahead. There was a clearing up ahead, faintly illuminated by the moonlight. Alex didn't see how that would help, but they followed her lead, trusting her instincts. The clearing led to a ravine, the sides steep and treacherous. She pointed down, her eyes conveying a silent plea. Alex hesitated only a moment before nodding. "All right, but this better not kill us." They scrambled down the rocky slope, every step threatening to send them tumbling. The alien woman moved with surprising agility, though Alex noticed the way she winced with each jarring step. She was still hurting, no matter how much she tried to hide it. Above them, the ship's hum intensified, and Alex knew the soldiers wouldn't be far behind. But the alien woman stopped suddenly, crouching near a patch of dense underbrush. She reached into the soil, her fingers working quickly, and pulled out a small, glowing device. Alex stared in astonishment. "What is that? You just had this stashed out here." She didn't answer, instead pressing a series of buttons on the device. A soft hum emanated from it, different from the ship above. It was gentler, almost soothing, and Alex realized she was activating something. The forest seemed to shift around them. The air shimmered, and suddenly the ravine looked different. The rocky walls seemed to merge with the surrounding trees, creating an illusion of unbroken wilderness. She turned to Alex, a small, triumphant smile on her lips. The message was clear. They were hidden, at least for now. But the look in her eyes warned that this was only a temporary reprieve. Their pursuers wouldn't give up so easily. The hum of the alien ship faded into the distance, its ominous presence retreating but leaving a charged silence in its wake. Alex remained crouched beside her, heart hammering from both exertion and the adrenaline coursing through their veins. For a moment, neither moved, as if even a single breath might shatter the fragile illusion cloaking them. Finally, Alex broke the silence. "That was insane." They glanced at her, their voice trembling with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Do you do this every day, or am I just lucky?" She tilted her head, an eyebrow arching at their tone. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, and for the first time since they'd met, Alex caught a glimpse of humor in her expression. It was fleeting, but it made her seem more human, more real. The moment was interrupted by a flicker of light on the strange device in her hands. Her expression darkened as she studied it, and she began speaking rapidly in her own language, her tone urgent and laced with frustration. "Slow down," Alex said, holding up their hands. "I still don't understand you." They motioned to the damaged translator clipped to her belt. "Can you get that thing working again?" She sighed, her frustration evident, and handed the translator to Alex. It was surprisingly light, though its sleek, alien design was completely foreign to them. Alex squinted at the small device, turning it over in their hands. A crack ran down its surface, and an exposed circuit sparked faintly. "I'm no engineer, but I might be able to jury-rig something, Alex muttered. They rummaged through their jacket pocket and produced a small multi-tool. Don't judge me if I make this worse. She watched intently as Alex began tinkering with the translator, her luminous eyes tracking every movement. There was something unspoken in her gaze, an unexpected trust, perhaps even admiration. Alex tried not to dwell on it too much. The pressure of her expectations was nerve-wracking enough without adding emotions into the mix. After several tense minutes, Alex twisted a wire into place and snapped the device back together. All right, moment of truth. They handed it back to her. Try it now. She hesitated, then clipped the translator onto her belt and pressed a small button on its side. A soft hum filled the air, and a few garbled sounds issued from the device before it emitted a steady chime. Her eyes lit up and she spoke again, this time in heavily accented but understandable English. Thank you. The simplicity of the words hit Alex like a punch to the chest. They'd been so focused on the technical problem that they hadn't fully prepared for the moment when communication would become possible. Her voice was melodic, but there was a strength beneath it that matched her presence. "You're welcome," Alex said, swallowing hard. "So, can we finally talk about what's going on?" She nodded, her expression turning serious. "My name is Kayla," she began. Was a scout. My mission was to survey habitable planets, but my ship was attacked, sabotaged. I crashed here." Alex listened, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fall into place. "And the people chasing you, they're the ones who sabotaged your ship?" "Yes." Kayla's gaze dropped, her voice tightening. "They are hunters, mercenaries. My people, we have enemies." "What do they want with you?" Alex asked. "The pod, is it some kind of weapon?" Kayla shook her head. "Not a weapon, it's a lifeline. My species, we can heal in stasis. The pod was keeping me alive." Her voice softened, tinged with guilt. "But now I have endangered you, I am sorry." Alex waved off her apology. "You didn't exactly crash in my attic on purpose. Besides, I'm not the type to leave someone hanging, especially not someone being hunted by, whatever those things are." Kayla looked at them, her expression unreadable. "You are different, most would have abandoned me." "Yeah, well, call me stubborn," Alex said with a weak grin. "Or stupid, take your pick." Kayla's lips twitched upward, but the moment was short-lived. She gestured to the shimmering ravine around them. "This concealment will not last. We must move, find shelter." Alex nodded, their mind racing. "There's an old cabin in the woods about half a mile from here. My family used it for hunting trips. It's not much, but it's hidden and stocked with supplies." Kayla considered this, then stood, her movements still graceful despite the tension in her frame. "Lead the way." As they made their way through the forest, Alex couldn't help but glance at her every so often. Even under the dim light filtering through the trees, Kayla was striking. Her movements were fluid, her skin glowing faintly like the soft blush of twilight. But it wasn't just her appearance, it was the way she carried herself, a blend of vulnerability and unyielding resolve. Alex found themselves both awed and deeply curious. Kayla caught one of their glances and raised an eyebrow. "Something wrong?" Alex flushed. No, just making sure you're keeping up." "I am fine," she said, though the faintest hint of amusement crept into her tone. They pressed on in silence until the cabin came into view. It was a modest structure, weathered by years of neglect but sturdy enough. Alex pushed open the door, revealing a single room with a small wood stove, a cot and shelves lined with canned goods. "Home sweet home," Alex said, motioning for Kayla to enter. "It's not much, but it's safe." Kayla stepped inside, her gaze sweeping over the room. "Thank you," she said again, her voice quieter this time. She turned to face Alex, and for the first time the tension in her posture seemed to ease. "You are unusual." "Unusual how?" Alex asked, leaning against the doorframe. Kayla hesitated as though searching for the right words. "Brave, kind." "My people, we are not used to such things from outsiders." Alex shrugged, a self-deprecating smile playing on their lips. Guess I just don't like seeing people get hurt, even if they're not exactly people. Kayla's expression softened, her luminous eyes meeting Alex's. You have already risked much for me. I will not forget this. Before Alex could respond, a distant rumble shook the ground beneath them. Kayla's expression turned grim once more. Their reprieve was over and the hunters were closing in. The cabin shuddered slightly as another rumble echoed through the forest. Kayla moved toward the small window, her gaze sharp and focused. Alex followed, their breath catching as a faint, eerie glow appeared in the distance. It flickered through the trees like a restless ghost, growing brighter with every passing second. They're coming, Kayla said, her voice steady but low. Alex clenched their fists. How do they keep finding you? I thought that ravine thing hit us. Kayla's brow furrowed. They must have scanned for residual energy signatures. My pod stasis field leaves traces, even when inactive. So they're tracking breadcrumbs we can't even see, Alex muttered. Great. Kayla turned to face them, her expression resolute. If they find us here, they will not stop until we are both captured, or worse. Alex ran a hand through their hair, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. We can't stay here then, but we can't just keep running either. We need a plan. Kayla hesitated, her gaze searching Alex's face. There is a way, but it is dangerous. Dangerous is kind of our thing right now, Alex replied, managing a wry smile. What's the plan? She stepped closer, her presence both imposing and strangely comforting. The hunter's technology is advanced, but it has limits. They rely on drones to locate me. If we can disable the drones, their search will slow. It might buy us time. Alex crossed their arms. Okay, disabling drones sounds simple enough, except for the part where they are armed, fast, and probably smarter than us. Kayla's lips quirked, almost imperceptibly. Not smarter, predictable, they are programmed to prioritize me. If I act as bait, you could ambush them. Alex blinked. Wait, hold up. You're suggesting I take on alien drones while you play decoy? Yes, Kayla said, as if it were the most logical conclusion. Yeah, no pressure, Alex muttered, pacing the cabin. But fine, if we're doing this, we need to stack the odds in our favor. They gestured to the shelves. There might be something here we can use. Old hunting gear, maybe some tools. Together, they scoured the cabin. Alex unearthed a rusted bear trap and a few lengths of wire, while Kayla inspected a dusty toolbox with the same precision she'd used on her pod. After a few minutes, Alex held up a battered flare gun. This might be our ticket, they said. If we can blind the drones or throw off their sensors. Kayla examined it thoughtfully, then nodded. It will work. Her confidence gave Alex a strange sense of reassurance. All right, they said, exhaling slowly. Let's do this. The two of them worked quickly, setting the trap just beyond the cabin's perimeter. Kayla adjusted the wires and scattered the flare gun's brightly colored cartridges as bait. Alex watched her, noting how her hands moved with practiced efficiency, her focus unwavering. You do this often? Alex asked, breaking the silence. Do what? Kayla didn't look up from her work. Set traps for alien mercenaries. Rig makeshift defenses, that sort of thing. She glanced at them, her lips curving in a faint smile. Not often, but survival teaches adaptability. Well, I'm learning on the fly, Alex said. So no promises this doesn't end with both of us in over our heads. Kayla straightened, her gaze meeting theirs. You underestimate yourself, Alex. You are resourceful and brave. The way she said their names sent a strange warmth through Alex's chest. They cleared their throat, averting their gaze. Thanks, but let's save the pep talk until we survive this. Kayla tilted her head, the faintest glimmer of amusement in her eyes. Fair. Once the trap was set, Kayla positioned herself in the clearing. Alex crouched behind a fallen log, the flare gun clutched tightly in their hands. The tension was palpable. Every sound in the forest amplified as they waited. The first drone appeared moments later, its sleek, metallic frame cutting through the shadows like a blade. It hovered above Kayla, scanning her with an eerie, pulsating light. She stood perfectly still, her posture calm but ready. A second drone joined the first, then a third. Alex's pulse quickened. The trap was set, the bait in place, but their timing had to be perfect. "Now," Kayla whispered, her voice barely audible. Alex fired the flare gun. The brilliant light erupted into the air, streaking toward the drones and momentarily blinding their sensors. Kayla sprang into action, lunging to trigger the trap. The wires snapped, ensnaring one drone while the others spun wildly, their systems overwhelmed. Alex scrambled to reload, but one of the drones adjusted faster than expected. It turned toward them, its sleek body emitting an ominous hum. "Alex, move!" Kayla shouted. They dove as a beam of searing light scorched the ground where they'd been crouched. Kayla rushed forward, her movements fluid and precise. She snatched a fallen branch and swung it at the drone, shattering one of its sensor arrays. The remaining drone buzzed angrily, but before it could retaliate, Alex fired another flare. The light struck the drone's underside, sending it spiraling into a tree with a deafening crash. For a moment, the forest was silent again. Alex panted, their limbs trembling from exertion. Kayla approached them, her expression unreadable. "You did well," she said softly. Alex managed a breathless laugh. "You're not so bad yourself." Kayla extended a hand, helping them to their feet. Her touch was firm but gentle, and as their eyes met, Alex felt a spark of something they couldn't quite name. "We should move," Kayla said, her voice breaking the moment. "They will send more." "Right," Alex said, shaking off the lingering daze. "Let's go." As they disappeared into the forest once more, the connection between them grew stronger, a fragile bond forged in the fires of survival. For the first time, Alex felt more than fear or desperation. They felt hope. The forest stretched endlessly around them, a maze of twisting trees and shadows that seemed to shift with every step. The air was heavy with the aftermath of the encounter, the faint scent of burnt ozone lingering like a ghost of their victory. Alex kept pace with Kayla, their breath steadying as they wove through the undergrowth. "How far until we're safe?" Alex asked, glancing over their shoulder. Kayla didn't break stride. "Not far. There is a cave system ahead. It will provide temporary shelter." Alex frowned. "Temporary? I thought we were trying to get off their radar for good." Kayla hesitated, her gaze flicking toward the canopy above. "The drones are scouts, the hunters will follow, they always do." Alex's stomach tightened. "And when they do," Kayla's expression hardened, "we fight." Alex let out a dry laugh. "Great, I'm all about playing hero with nothing but a flare gun and some rusty traps." Kayla stopped abruptly, turning to face them. Her eyes held a flicker of frustration, but also something softer. "You underestimate your own resourcefulness. If not for you, those drones would have found us sooner." Alex blinked, caught off guard by the intensity of her words. "I guess, but it's not exactly a winning strategy. We need something more." Kayla tilted her head, considering them. "What would you suggest?" The question caught Alex off guard. "You're asking me. You are human. You think differently, creatively. That is your strength." Alex crossed their arms, trying to ignore the faint flush of pride creeping up their neck. "All right, well, if it were up to me, I'd say we need to even the playing field. Hit them where it hurts. Do they have a base or something?" Kayla nodded slowly. "They operate from a mothership. It remains in orbit beyond reach. But their ground units rely on a local relay for communication and coordination." "Okay, so what happens if we take out the relay?" Kayla's expression shifted, a spark of intrigue lighting her eyes. "Their search patterns would collapse. It would force them to retreat or regroup." Alex grinned. "Then we have a plan." Kayla's gaze lingered on them, a hint of admiration in her expression. "Perhaps you are more than I anticipated." Alex rubbed the back of their neck, feeling the warmth of her words settle in their chest. "I'll take that as a compliment." Kayla's lips curved in a faint smile before she turned and resumed walking. Alex followed, their determination solidifying with each step. They reached the cave just as the sun began to dip below the horizon. casting the forest in a golden haze. The entrance was partially obscured by thick vines, but Kayla pushed through with ease. Inside, the air was cool and damp, the walls glistening faintly in the dim light. "This will do for now," Kayla said, inspecting the space. Alex dropped their pack and leaned against the wall, their legs finally giving in to exhaustion. "I've got to say, I didn't picture myself doing any of this when I started cleaning out the attic." Kayla arched an eyebrow. "Is this a typical human activity?" "Attics," Alex laughed. "Sort of. It's where we keep all the stuff we don't need but can't get rid of. Old memories, broken junk, that kind of thing." Kayla's expression softened, curiosity flickering across her features. "Memories?" "Yeah," Alex said, pulling a photo from their pocket. It was bent at the edges, the image slightly faded but still clear enough to make out a younger version of Alex standing between two smiling figures. "Like this. It's a picture of my family." Kayla stepped closer, her gaze fixed on the photo. "They look content." "They were," Alex said quietly. "We used to come out to places like this all the time, hiking, camping, just being together. It was simple, but it meant everything." Kayla studied the photo for a moment longer before handing it back. "You carry them with you, always," Alex said, tucking the photo away. "What about you? Got any alien family photos stashed somewhere?" Kayla's expression darkened, the brief flicker of warmth replaced by a shadow of pain. "No, my people were not permitted such indulgences." Alex frowned. "That sounds awful." "It was our way," Kayla said, her tone carefully neutral. "We were bred for efficiency, for survival. Sentiment was seen as a weakness." Alex hesitated, unsure of what to say. "But you don't believe that, do you?" Kayla's gaze met theirs, her eyes filled with unspoken emotion. "No, I do not." The silence that followed was heavy but not uncomfortable. It was a moment of understanding, a fragile connection that bridged the vast differences between them. "We'll get through this," Alex said finally. "And when we do, maybe you can start making some memories of your own." Kayla tilted her head, her lips curving in a faint smile. "Perhaps." The sound of distant thrumming broke the moment, pulling their attention back to the world outside. Kayla's expression hardened, her hand instinctively reaching for the makeshift weapon at her side. "They are close," she said. Alex stood, their resolve sharpening. "Then let's give them something to remember us by." Kayla nodded, her eyes glinting with determination. Together they stepped out of the cave, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on them. But for the first time, Alex didn't feel afraid. They felt ready. The night was alive with tension. Every rustle of leaves and crack of twigs seemed amplified in the stillness as Alex and Kayla crouched near the edge of a clearing. Ahead, faint red lights blinked in a rhythmic pattern, marking the alien relay they had come to destroy. The relay itself was a towering, insect-like structure made of gleaming black metal, its spindly legs rooted deep into the ground. Tendrils of energy pulsed along its surface, and the air around it shimmered faintly, distorting the forest backdrop. Drones hovered in lazy orbits around the perimeter, their searchlights sweeping methodically through the trees. Alex exhaled slowly, gripping the scavenged plasma weapon Kayla had modified for them. "So, what's the plan? We sneak in, plant the explosives, and hope for the best?" Kayla shook her head, her gaze scanning the area. "The drones will detect any approach. We must create a distraction." "Distraction," Alex repeated, their voice rising slightly. "And by distraction, I'm guessing you mean me." Kayla's lips quirked into the faintest smile. "You are perceptive." "Great," Alex muttered, checking the weapon's power level. "What kind of distraction are we talking about here?" Kayla's expression grew serious. "The relay has multiple power nodes embedded in its structure. If you can disable one, the system will reroute energy, creating a temporary vulnerability. I will use that window to overload its core." Alex nodded, swallowing hard. "So I run around, draw fire, and hope I don't get vaporized while you do the smart stuff." Kayla's eyes softened, her hand resting briefly on their shoulder. "You are more capable than you realize. Trust yourself." Alex met her gaze, finding a surprising steadiness there. "All right," they said, their voice firming. "Let's do this." Kayla nodded, slipping away into the shadows with a grace that made her almost invisible. Alex took a deep breath, their heart pounding as they edged closer to the clearing. They scanned the area, spotting a cluster of exposed conduits snaking out from one of the relay's legs. It looked important enough to cause trouble if it were damaged. "Here goes nothing," Alex muttered, raising the weapon. The first shot struck true, sending a shower of sparks cascading from the conduits. The effect was immediate. The drone's searchlights snapped toward the disturbance, their movements becoming sharp and purposeful as they swarmed toward Alex's position. "Oh, great," Alex muttered, diving behind a fallen tree as plasma bolts seared the air above their head. They popped up just long enough to fire a few more shots, keeping the drone's attention focused on them. Their aim wasn't perfect, but it was enough to make a mess of the surrounding equipment, sending debris and energy arcs flying. Meanwhile, Kayla was a shadow among shadows, darting between the trees with uncanny precision. She reached the relay's central core, her hands moving quickly as she rigged a series of charges to the vulnerable points she had identified earlier. Alex gritted their teeth, ducking as another volley of plasma fire scorched the tree trunk behind them. "Anytime now, Kayla." They shouted, their voice strained. Kayla's voice crackled through the communicator she had handed Alex earlier. "Hold your position. It is almost ready." "Define almost," Alex retorted, firing blindly over the edge of their cover. The recoil sent a jolt up their arm, but they ignored it, focusing instead on keeping the drones occupied. Kayla didn't respond, her focus entirely on the task at hand. She connected the final charge, her movements swift and deliberate before retreating to a safe distance. "Alex," she said, her tone calm but urgent. "The charges are set. Fall back." Alex didn't need to be told twice. They sprinted through the undergrowth, their pulse roaring in their ears as the drones gave chase. A sharp whistle cut through the air, Kayla's signal. Alex veered toward it, spotting her crouched behind a rocky outcrop. "Get down," Kayla commanded, pulling Alex to the ground just as the charges detonated. The explosion lit up the night like a miniature sun, a shockwave ripping through the clearing and sending drones tumbling like scattered leaves. The relay shuddered violently, its sleek structure crumpling as energy surged wildly through its systems. Sparks and debris rained down, the air thick with the smell of burning metal. Alex peeked over the edge of the rock, their chest heaving. "Did we get it?" Kayla stood slowly, her gaze fixed on the wreckage. The relay's blinking lights flickered erratically before going dark. A faint, almost imperceptible hum in the air faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. "It is done," Kayla said softly. Alex let out a shaky laugh, relief washing over them like a tidal wave. "Remind me to never question your plans again." Kayla turned to them, a rare smile gracing her lips. "You performed admirably." Alex grinned, brushing dirt off their clothes. "Not bad for a human distraction, huh?" Kayla's gaze lingered on them, her expression warm. "Not bad at all." Their moment was interrupted by a distant rumble, the ground beneath them trembling slightly. Kayla's smile faded, her posture tensing. "What now?" Alex asked, their hearts sinking. Kayla's voice was grim. "The mothership. They know we are here." Alex's stomach turned. "So we just bought ourselves more trouble." Kayla met their gaze, her eyes steady despite the tension in her voice. "Yes, but we also bought time. Time to prepare." Alex nodded, their determination hardening. "Then let's make it count." Kayla extended her hand and Alex took it without hesitation. Together, they disappeared into the forest, the weight of what lay ahead pressing heavily on their shoulders, but neither willing to face it alone. The forest seemed endless as Alex and Kayla moved through the shadows, the looming presence of the alien mothership pressing down on them like an invisible weight. It hung in the sky, its jagged, asymmetrical silhouette blotting out the stars. Red searchlights swept across the treetops, accompanied by the low, menacing hum of descending craft. "We can't keep running forever," Alex said between labored breaths, their legs aching from the relentless pace. "They'll find us." Kayla nodded, her eyes scanning their surroundings with the intensity of a predator. "We need to reach higher ground. If we can find a vantage point, we may disrupt their tracking systems." "And by disrupt, I assume you mean blow something up?" Alex asked, trying to inject some levity despite their rising anxiety. Kayla glanced at them, the faintest smirk touching her lips. "You are learning." Alex huffed a laugh, their grip tightening on the plasma weapon. "All right, lead the way." Kayla pointed toward a rocky ridge that jutted out above the treetops. It was steep and uneven, the climb promising to test their endurance, but it offered their best chance of evading the enemy's relentless pursuit. The ascent was grueling, every step a battle against loose rocks and slippery moss. Alex's muscles burned and their breath came in ragged gasps, but they pushed on, driven by the determined pace Kayla set. She moved with a fluid grace, her alien physiology allowing her to navigate the terrain with ease. "You do this often," Alex panted, trying not to sound too winded. Kayla paused briefly, glancing over her shoulder. "Survival is a skill I learned early. You are managing well." "Thanks, I think," Alex muttered, hoisting themselves up another ledge. As they neared the ridge, the forest gave way to jagged rocks and sparse vegetation. The view opened up, revealing the full scope of the mothership's presence. It hovered ominously, its surface bristling with weaponry and alien architecture. Smaller craft darted around it like hornets, scanning the ground with ruthless efficiency. Kayla knelt behind a boulder, her sharp eyes narrowing. "There," she said, pointing to a structure near the center of the mothership. "That is the main sensor array. If we can disable it, we will disrupt their ability to coordinate." Alex squinted at the distant target, their hearts sinking. "You're telling me we have to get up there?" Kayla's expression remained calm, though her jaw tightened. "It will be difficult, but not impossible." "Right," Alex said, trying to muster some courage. "So what's the plan?" Kayla's gaze remained fixed on the mothership. "Their search parties are spread thin. We will infiltrate one of the smaller craft and use it to reach the array." Alex stared at her, incredulous. "Infiltrate, as in hijack." Kayla's calm demeanor didn't waver. "Do you have a better idea?" Alex opened their mouth, then closed it again. "No, but I reserve the right to panic later." Kayla's lips quirked in a faint smile. "Understood." The faint whine of engines drew their attention, and Kayla motioned for Alex to stay low. A patrol craft was approaching, its sleek, angular design blending seamlessly with the night sky. Its searchlights swept the ridge, illuminating the rocks with harsh, white beams. Kayla's hand rested lightly on Alex's shoulder. "When it passes, we move. Stay close to me." Alex nodded, their heart pounding as the searchlights crept closer. The tension was suffocating, every nerve in their body screaming to bolt, but they held their ground, trusting Kayla's instincts. As the craft passed overhead, Kayla moved with swift, silent precision, Alex following in her wake. They darted between boulders and crevices, each step carefully placed to avoid drawing attention. The patrol craft began to descend, its engines humming louder as it landed in a nearby clearing. Kayla crouched behind a rock, her eyes scanning the area. "This is our opportunity. Stay behind me." The craft's hatch hissed open and two alien soldiers stepped out, their movements purposeful and alert. They were tall and imposing, their sleek armor glinting in the moonlight. Kayla moved like a shadow, her agility and speed almost supernatural. Before the soldiers could react, she struck, her blade slicing through the first with lethal precision. The second managed to raise its weapon, but Alex's training with the plasma rifle paid off. A shot rang out, striking the soldier square in the chest and sending it sprawling to the ground. Alex lowered the rifle, their hands shaking slightly. "I guess we're doing this." Kayla nodded approvingly, her gaze lingering on Alex for a moment before she turned her attention to the craft. "Quickly." They will notice the patrol is missing. They climbed aboard, the interior of the craft a mix of sleek metal surfaces and glowing control panels. Kayla moved to the pilot's seat, her fingers flying over the unfamiliar controls with practiced ease. Alex slid into the co-pilot's chair, their nerves still raw. "You sure you know how to fly this thing?" Kayla shot them a wry look. "Trust me." The craft's engines roared to life, and Alex gripped the edge of their seat as it lifted off the ground. The clearing disappeared beneath them, replaced by the vast expanse of the forest and the ominous bulk of the mothership ahead. As they approached, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into the lion's den. But with Kayla at their side, they found a strange sense of calm amidst the chaos. "Ready?" Kayla asked, her voice steady despite the danger ahead. Alex took a deep breath, their resolve hardening. "Let's finish this." The craft hummed with a low, steady thrum as Kayla and Alex approached the heart of the mothership. The vastness of the vessel stretched out before them, its black surface gleaming in the eerie light of distant stars. Their mission felt increasingly surreal. Their small craft, a speck against the looming mass of the mothership, was about to breach its defenses. "Stay sharp," Kayla said, her voice low and focused as she adjusted the craft's course. "We'll need to disable the sensor array from the inside. If they detect us, it will be over." Alex's knuckles whitened around the plasma rifle, a reminder of the danger they were rushing toward. "You're sure about this? We're just gonna walk in, disable their systems, and leave?" Kayla shot a glance at them, her face unreadable in the low light. "Not exactly. We need to disable the array, but if we're too slow, they'll retaliate. This isn't just about getting in, it's about staying ahead." The mothership's outer hull grew closer, revealing intricate patterns of alien architecture, strange markings and glowing symbols that Alex couldn't begin to understand. The craft's engines hummed in protest, as though the vessel itself was aware of the intrusion. But Kayla piloted them expertly, weaving through defensive perimeter systems that lashed out with short bursts of energy. As they closed in, Alex felt a surge of adrenaline, the weight of the mission pressing down on them like a physical force. They were doing something impossible, something that had no right to succeed. But here they were, with nothing left to lose. Kayla's voice broke through the tension. "We're in. Get ready." The craft pierced through the final layers of the mothership's outer defenses and entered the hangar bay, its automated systems shutting off with eerie precision. It was a massive, sterile space, lined with ships of varying shapes and sizes, war machines meant to crush anything that stood in their way. "Stay low," Kayla instructed as they disembarked, moving swiftly toward the nearest control panel. The hangar was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Alex could feel the hairs on the back of their necks stand up as they moved with purpose, their every step echoing ominously in the cavernous space. The lack of immediate threat was unnerving. It felt like they were being watched. "I'm accessing the array," Kayla murmured, her fingers flying across the unfamiliar interface. The console lit up with strange symbols, but she didn't hesitate. "This is where we split up." Alex looked at her, confused. "Split up," Kayla nodded, her gaze intense. "You need to make sure no one notices us. I'll handle the rest." Alex hesitated but nodded in agreement. They weren't exactly prepared for this level of infiltration, but they didn't have a choice. The thought of Kayla risking herself alone didn't sit well, but Alex had seen her in action. She was capable. "I'll cover you," Alex said, voice steady despite the rapid beating of their heart. Kayla flashed a brief smile. "I trust you." Alex moved toward the far side of the hangar, staying behind crates and machinery, eyes darting as they searched for any signs of life. They weren't exactly experts in alien technology or tactics, but instinct had always been a powerful ally, and they relied on it now as they made their way through the darkened room. Suddenly, the air seemed to thicken. Something was off. The hum of the mothership's engines reverberated deeper, and the faint glow of distant lights flickered. Alex's senses sharpened. They weren't alone. A soft noise, almost imperceptible, came from behind them. They spun around, raising their plasma rifle, heart in their throat, but there was nothing, just shadows and silence. For a moment, Alex's grip tightened on the weapon, eyes scanning the area for threats, and then they saw it: movement. A silhouette standing by the far corner of the room, nearly invisible in the dim light. Alex's blood ran cold. "Kayla," they whispered into their communicator, keeping their voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline. "We've got company." "Stay calm," Kayla's voice crackled back. "Focus on staying hidden. I'm almost done here." But Alex didn't feel calm. The figure in the shadows began to approach, their movements slow and deliberate. Every step seemed to vibrate in Alex's chest, a pulse of impending danger. The figure stepped into the light, revealing the unmistakable silhouette of an alien soldier, armed and heavily armored. Its face was obscured by a helmet, but Alex could feel the cold gaze of its eyes beneath, scanning the hangar with predatory precision. Alex's heart raced. This was it. The mission had gone from high stakes to life or death in an instant. They raised the plasma rifle, hands shaking, but they had only one shot. The alien was too far for a clean shot to the head, but Alex aimed at its chest, fingers hovering over the trigger. Another figure appeared behind the first, a second soldier, then a third. Alex was outnumbered. They couldn't take them all down without backup. The alien soldiers continued to approach, and Alex felt a pang of panic begin to rise. This was the moment when everything could fall apart. But then, Kayla's calm voice broke through the noise in Alex's mind. "Alex," she said, urgency creeping into her tone, "I need you to trust me." Alex's eyes flicked back to the soldiers who were now just meters away. There was no time to waste. "Do it," Alex barked. In that instant, Kayla's plan activated. The hangar lights flickered wildly, then went out entirely. The sudden blackout plunged them into darkness, and Alex's senses went on high alert. They didn't have a visual, but the sound of alien footsteps faltered, as if the soldiers were confused by the disruption. Before they could regroup, a sharp, electrifying blast tore through the air. Alex barely had time to react as the soldier nearest to them collapsed, crumpling to the floor in a heap of charred armor. The remaining soldiers faltered, and in the chaos, Kayla appeared out of nowhere, her presence like a force of nature. She moved with fluid grace, her alien strength evident as she dispatched the remaining soldiers with ruthless precision. The first one didn't even see her coming. When the last soldier fell, the hangar fell eerily silent again. Alex exhaled shakily, lowering the rifle. "You could have warned me." Kayla glanced at them with a smirk. "You did fine." Alex didn't say anything, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through their veins. But as they turned to Kayla, something in the air between them shifted, as if the chaos had cemented something deeper. A bond forged in the fire of battle. Kayla didn't need to say a word. The trust they had built in the past days had been cemented with that moment of survival, and in the depths of the mothership, the next part of their mission was waiting. Now, they just had to finish it. The corridor stretched out before them, dark and oppressive, the faint hum of the mothership's systems vibrating through the metal floor beneath their feet. Alex and Kayla moved quickly but cautiously, the eerie silence pressing in on them from all sides. They had infiltrated the mothership, disabled its outer defenses, and fought their way through countless obstacles. Now, the most crucial part of the mission lay ahead, the sensor array that would enable Kayla's people to track and destroy the mothership from the inside. Alex's heart pounded in their chest as they navigated the twisting passages, each step echoing loudly in the otherwise dead silence of the ship. There was no room for error now. If they failed, it wouldn't just be their lives at stake, it would be the end of any chance of victory for Kayla's people. "Any idea what we're walking into?" Alex asked, glancing over at Kayla. She didn't answer right away, her eyes scanning the dark hallway ahead. "The array is heavily guarded. I've disabled as much as I could, but they'll be expecting us by now." "Great," Alex muttered, gripping their plasma rifle tighter. "I'm sure that's not going to make things easier. We can't afford to hesitate." Kayla's tone was sharp, her gaze intense as she looked at Alex. "Once we reach the core, I'll need you to cover me. I'll handle the disarming process." Alex nodded, trying to mask the nervous energy gnawing at them. This was the moment. They had come so far, and now, one wrong move could mean the end. They rounded a corner, and Alex's senses heightened as they entered a larger chamber. A central control room filled with rows of alien technology, consoles flickering with symbols Alex couldn't decipher. At the far end of the room was the massive core they had been targeting, the sensor array looming like a dark behemoth in the center. But they weren't alone. Figures stepped out from the shadows, their movements silent and swift. Alex counted at least 5, each one wearing the distinctive black and silver armor of the mothership's elite guards. Their weapons were drawn and their eyes glowed faintly beneath their helmets, the alien gaze unmistakable. Alex's breath caught in their throat. There was no way they could take on all 5 of them at once. "We'll have to fight," Kayla said, her voice steady despite the sudden pressure. "I can't disarm the array while they're still active." Alex was already moving, their instincts kicking in. "Cover me," they shouted, racing toward the nearest console. Without hesitation, Kayla sprang into action, moving with the precision and grace that Alex had come to expect from her. Her alien strength was evident as she took on the guards one by one, her movements blindingly fast, her strikes lethal and efficient. Each time one of the guards lunged at her, she was already a step ahead, disarming them or sending them sprawling to the ground in a blur of motion. Alex, meanwhile, focused on keeping the remaining guards distracted, using their rifle to fire in quick bursts that kept the enemies on their toes. The plasma shots sizzled through the air, but the guards' advanced armor absorbed most of the blasts, leaving Alex with little more than a temporary advantage. "Kayla," Alex shouted, their voice tight with urgency. "I need a little help here." Kayla shot a glance over her shoulder, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the situation. She reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a small device, tossing it to Alex. "Use this. It'll disable their armor." Alex caught it, heart racing as they realized what Kayla had given them, a small EMP device. They didn't hesitate. With a quick flick of the wrist, Alex activated the device, sending a pulse of electromagnetic energy into the air. The guards froze for a moment, their armor flickering and sparking as the EMP took effect. It was enough. Alex charged forward, taking advantage of their momentary vulnerability. With quick, calculated strikes, they disabled the remaining guards, taking them out one by one with swift punches and well-aimed shots to weak points in their armor. When the last guard fell, the room fell silent again, save for the faint hum of the mothership's core. Alex was breathing heavily, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. They wiped the sweat from their brow, glancing over at Kayla, who had already turned her attention to the sensor array. "Nice work," Kayla said, her voice low but appreciative. "Thanks," Alex replied, still catching their breath. "Now, let's finish this." Kayla approached the sensor array, her movements deliberate as she began to interface with the alien technology. Her fingers flew across the control panel, inputting commands that Alex couldn't even begin to comprehend. The core of the mothership pulsed with an ominous glow, but Kayla remained focused, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Almost there," Kayla murmured, her voice tinged with strain. Suddenly, the room trembled. A deep, resonating hum filled the air, and Alex felt a jolt of fear run through them. "What the hell is that?" Kayla didn't answer right away, her focus unwavering as she worked furiously to bypass the final security measures. "They've detected us," she said, her voice calm despite the increasing tension. "We don't have much time." Alex scanned the room, heart pounding in their chest. The door to the control room hissed open and more soldiers began to pour in. Alex's mind raced. They couldn't hold them off forever. Kayla's eyes flicked up from the console, and for the first time, Alex saw the weight of the situation in her eyes. We finish this now, or we die here. With no time to waste, Alex bolted to the door, their rifle raised. They fired in quick bursts, taking down the first few soldiers that appeared, but they knew they were outnumbered. The air was thick with tension, and every moment felt like an eternity. Kayla worked faster, her fingers moving so quickly that Alex could barely keep up with her. The soldiers were closing in, but Kayla's determination burned through every obstacle. And then, just as the last wave of soldiers charged, the console flickered once more. The sensor array powered down with a loud crack, and the oppressive hum of the ship's systems came to a sudden halt. "Done," Kayla said, her voice filled with a quiet triumph. Alex didn't wait. They surged forward, firing on the remaining soldiers with everything they had. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The last of the guards fell, and the room went still. Alex turned to Kayla, their eyes meeting in the aftermath. In the chaos, they had done it. The array was disabled and they had made it out alive. But they both knew this wasn't over yet. There would be more battles, more challenges ahead. But in that moment, amid the wreckage and the silence, Alex and Kayla shared a quiet understanding. They were in this together. And no matter what came next, they would face it side by side. The aftermath of the battle left the control room littered with the remains of the fallen guards. The ship was eerily quiet, its ominous hum now replaced by a heavy silence that settled like dust on their shoulders. Alex and Kayla stood together, their bodies tense but their expressions resolute. The gravity of their victory was undeniable, but the weight of their task was far from over. They had completed the impossible, disabled the sensor array, which would allow Kayla's people to track and destroy the mothership. But now they had to escape. Kayla's gaze flicked over to the large viewport, her eyes narrowing as she observed the dimly lit expanse of space beyond. "This ship is on the brink of self-destruction," she said quietly, her voice tinged with a weary edge. "Once the failsafe activates, we won't have much time to get out of here." Alex nodded, already formulating their escape plan. They had seen the countdown clocks for the ship's detonation in their brief foray into the control room's main systems. They had minutes, maybe 10, 15 at most, before everything went to hell. "We need to move," Alex said, a sense of urgency flooding their chest. "Where's the nearest escape pod?" Kayla didn't hesitate, already turning to face a corridor behind them. "This way," she called, her voice cutting through the tension. She moved quickly, but Alex could tell from the tightness in her posture that this wasn't a victory lap for her. The fight, the disarming of the array, all of it had taken a toll on her. But like always, she pressed on. They made their way through the hallways of the mothership, navigating the same eerie emptiness that had become all too familiar. The air felt thicker now, charged with the impending destruction that hovered over them like a sword. Every sound, every distant echo felt amplified, as if the ship itself was holding its breath, waiting to collapse in on itself. Alex kept pace beside Kayla, glancing at her occasionally. Despite everything, the connection between them was undeniable. They had fought together, bled together, and now they were racing against the clock to survive. As they approached the escape pods, a sudden flash of bright red light lit up the corridor. The ship had initiated its self-destruct sequence. "Shit," Alex hissed, pulling Kayla to a halt. "We need to move faster." "We're close," Kayla replied, her voice steady despite the panic creeping into Alex's chest. "Just a little further." But the ship wasn't going to make it easy. The door to the escape pod chamber slid open with a mechanical hiss, and a dozen soldiers flooded in, blocking their path. Alex's mind raced, hands instinctively going for their rifle, but they knew it was no use. The soldiers were armed and time was running out. "Kayla, we don't have time for a fight," Alex said, their voice taut with urgency. "Is there another way out?" Kayla glanced at the soldiers, her expression unreadable. Then, without warning, she turned to Alex and grabbed their arm, pulling them toward a narrow, barely noticeable side passage. "This way," she whispered urgently, her hand still gripping Alex's wrist. Alex didn't hesitate. They followed her down the tight, cramped hallway, each step bringing them closer to the escape pods and each moment feeling more dangerous than the last. They could hear the soldiers shouting in pursuit, but Kayla's quick thinking had bought them a moment. The side passage twisted and turned, taking them deeper into the ship's underbelly. Alex could feel their pulse pounding in their ears as they followed Kayla, trusting her instinct despite the uncertainty of the path. Finally, they reached a hidden door at the end of the hall. Kayla pulled it open, revealing a smaller, isolated escape pod chamber that Alex hadn't seen before. It was unguarded, quiet, almost too quiet. "This is it," Kayla said, breathless but determined, her hand still firmly gripping Alex's. "Get in." Without hesitation, they both climbed into the pod, sealing the hatch behind them. The soft hum of the escape pod's engine whirred to life, and the countdown timer for the ship's destruction flickered on the console in front of them. Alex took a deep breath, glancing over at Kayla. In the dim light of the pod, her face was illuminated with a mix of exhaustion and determination, her eyes locked on the countdown clock. She had done it. She had helped disable the ship's core, led them through the chaos, and now she had kept them both alive. "We made it," Alex said quietly, their voice filled with awe and a strange sense of finality. Kayla gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, her gaze still fixed on the timer. "Not yet." The pod lurched as it detached from the mothership, drifting into the vast emptiness of space. The countdown continued. Seconds stretched into eternity as they watched the timer tick down, each number a reminder of the chaos they had just survived. Alex's heart raced, not just from the danger of the impending explosion, but from the weight of the journey they had just completed together. And then, with a deafening roar that shook the very core of the mothership, the explosion rang out, a brilliant, blinding flash of light followed by a shockwave that rattled the escape pod. For a moment, everything was silent. The ship was gone. Alex let out a breath they hadn't realized they were holding. The mothership, their enemy, their tormentor, was no more. The stars beyond the pod's viewport twinkled quietly, a stark contrast to the madness they had just endured. They had won. But even as the relief washed over them, Alex felt something else, something deeper. A bond forged in the fire of battle and tempered by shared experiences. Something between them that had grown into something more. Kayla turned to face Alex, her eyes soft but full of quiet strength. "We did it." "Yeah," Alex said, their voice catching. "We did." For a long moment neither of them spoke. There was nothing more to say, nothing but the hum of the escape pod and the stars that stretched out before them. And as the silence between them deepened, Alex knew one thing for certain: this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The universe was vast, and together they would face whatever came next.